under the auspices of the Gamma Group.
Welcome to Rumbo Minero Show. Welcome, Cesar. How are you? Nice to see you, Jorge. Along with Cesar Campos, my name is Jorge Leon Benavides. We will develop this program with guests who are very interesting. Víctor Andrés García Belaunde has been a former congressman, historian, a person who will talk about mining, and we will open the debate, quite interesting. And also will be here with us
Carlos Gálvez, of course, Pinillo's boss, who was president of the National Society of Mining, Petroleum and Energy, and is on its board. With Carlos Gálvez, we will talk about sustained growth under the shadow of mining illegal.
So it is a very interesting program. Stay with us. Next, join us for the main mining news presented by Gabriela Chicoma.
Thank you, Jorge. These are the main mining news of the week.
The general manager of Hampton Mining, Peru, Jim Bananting, presented the progress of the Los Calatos project, located in Moquegua. According to the executive, this copper and molybdenum project will begin construction next year, while its operation will start the following year and will have a useful life of 24 years. This will create a significant demand for jobs in the region. The British multinational Anglo-American operator of the Quilabeco mine continues to strengthen its presence in Peru. Last April, the company submitted a request to INGEMED to obtain a mining concession in the Ayacucho region. The request covers an area of 1,000 hectares in the Zancos district, which extends between the provinces of Huanca and Zancos. This is the initial step for future exploration activities and eventual exploitation of mineral resources in the area.
Well, with us now is Víctor Andrés García Belaunde, lawyer, writer, and former congressman of the Republic. Víctor Andrés, welcome to Rumbo Minero.
Thank you for the invitation. A pleasure to be here.
I wanted to explore a bit your extensive parliamentary experience in dealing with mining issues because you have had to face them many, many times before. Even when being critical of poor mining practices, of course, it can always happen, but also to the more radical sectors that have attempted to establish.
Well, in that case, making the introduction a bit long, let's get to the point. I think there has been dual responsibility here, or maybe triple, right? The government that fails to explain the importance of mining to the national economy. The miners who haven't cared that those resources they complain about remain in the area or region, right? And thirdly, evidently our political class, which is a very improvised political class. Our political class comes from our leadership class. The political class isn't created overnight. The leadership class emerges, and logically, there are certain interests and above all, ignorance and much demagoguery. So what I mean by this is that there have been governments that have utilized this issue of water or gold, whatever, to campaign, but there was no positive reaction. The case of Tia Maria, for instance. Tia Maria, or the Tia Maria area, or the Moquegua region, is a very ancient mine which arrived during the times of Odria's era. The Saudel, still called Saudel, but it's no longer American, it's Mexican. And we must remember that in the 50s, 60s and beyond, there were many fumes which no one cared about at all, and that ruined many farmlands around, and Saudel hired engineers from the Agrarian University to go there and work, conduct inspections, see the damage caused and compensate the workers, the local farmers in the area. Well, that is no longer done, and it was done back then. You will see that now there are probably not as many fumes as back then, which might be true indeed, but there was a certain level of concern. Concern, logically, initiative from them and from the government, because private concern is not always spontaneous. Sometimes it's induced by the government. We must consider that mining companies sometimes don't think about the consequences. They think about paying their taxes and dues, but not about what is happening around them as well.
President Boluarte talked about 5 projects, right? 5 projects that would involve, well, Raura, Chalcobamba, Phase 1, Romina, Corani, Guayabeco, Apurimac, Ancash, Huanco Lima, Cajamarca, and Puno. And that would bring about $2 billion in investments. If these projects are carried out, which is likely, I mean, we are not talking about very complex names, right? Not very complex projects, where would it place us then as a country? Because already having Tia Maria, having Corani, and having these upcoming projects, could we talk about a new boom in the mining sector?
Well, it relates to Peru being a mining country, and according to experts, I am not one. What is exploited in Peru is 10 or 15% of its mining reserves. So if that's the case, Peru will have that opportunity to be a boom indeed at any moment. It's about having government support, but I insist there are certain things that Mrs. Boluarte has said, which I think are very good. The issue is that they don't just remain words and don't turn into actions. And there are things that need to be done. For example, in the case of Tia Maria, which we have just discussed, the dam is fundamental. The manager of Tierra de Asado just announced the construction of a dam that has been requested for 20 years or for 15 years. I mean, the Peruvian resident is very distrustful of the promises made by politicians, by leaders, and those in charge, and sometimes, sadly, also of companies. So you cannot offer a community to extract and exploit minerals without first constructing a dam. First you build the dam, first you provide water to the people.
But also the issue lies in that those responsible for carrying out the projects, since the mining companies have mostly paid their 50-something% of taxes they owe, it's the government. The government is the one that must execute projects.
The government has to lead, promote, monitor, and well, execution depends on whether it's a public or private project, right? But in any case, the government has to be behind it. Yes, it is the great coordinator, referee, promoter, sponsor, etc. And the one who sets the field has to be the government. We agree. Otherwise, people are not happy. That's right.
It seemed like your answer to what I was asking was incomplete, appealing precisely to your long, extensive, and above all, productive parliamentary experience, because I think everyone, they acknowledge it. Are there anti-mining groups out there? You have seen the actions of people who deliberately oppose mining.
Yes. Well, there will always be someone who is against it. Unanimity in creating a business, any business. Business does not always generate consensus, right? For example, the case of Las Bambas. How do you convince a person who lives peacefully in the countryside and the next day they build a road, make it national, and 300 trucks pass by? Even in San Isidro in Refugio, if they place a transport line right in front of your house, you start to worry. So that happens up there. It happens in the Andes. So the question is, why don't we do anything so that the surrounding people do not oppose in such a way? Because sometimes the opposition can be radical.
You will agree with me on one thing. There is a high level of intermediaries in the dialogue with communities, used by people, as you rightly say, from parliamentary factions, lawyers who offer their services, and who, of course, sometimes waste the resources of these same community members to oppose a mining project that will improve the mines. You mentioned Las Bambas. My goodness, Las Bambas, in the end, what they did was to build a welfare state almost exclusively for them.
That's very good. But something was missing. The railway that was not constructed and that the previous owners were going to construct, but the new owners changed all the designs. So the railway is essential.
Where is the government and the state's role? Where is the
state has to
fulfill?
promote that, promote and execute.
For that, it receives the canon?
Yes, but the canon in Peru is based on income tax, not outside of it. The total sum of taxes is. I don't think that's the case. I want to make a comparison.
It is so. There is
I
a
want
percentage that is very
to cut-
high, which even the mining entrepreneurs don't complain about. I am still
make a comparison. When does the industry pay taxes? Any industry. And how much does mining pay? And the difference is very small. No? From 30 to 51. No. Where is 51? How do you reach 51? There are more royalties. You have many contributions. No. Royalties are within the income tax. They should be outside. The tax
the issue.
on windfall profits, for instance, how much is it? 1%? 2%?
No, it's more.
Yes, it's the margin indeed, but that's why they don't oppose it.
So let me tell you
the
something.
mining entrepreneurs
Mining
don't
entrepreneurs
oppose
say they
it.
put this.
I support mining. I believe mining is Peru's solution, but things need to be done better than they are being done now by the entrepreneurs, the political class, and the leadership that go hand in hand. Sometimes they are more leaders than politicians. And the current government, of course. But for example, in the case of Las Bambas, you know that in Las Bambas they changed the rules or approved a double taxation agreement so they wouldn't pay taxes in Peru when transferred to Sweden and paid less. And Peru lost about $800 million. People do not know about that. That can't be done. And that was promoted by the government. It reached Parliament to ratify a double taxation treaty with Switzerland. Peru has nothing to do with Switzerland. It imports chocolates. Gaston Acuno has not yet reached Switzerland, and we are selling them our gold. We sell them gold and import what exactly? And they have mines in Peru. Peru has no investments in Switzerland. But Switzerland had at that time, and still has in some way now less, but had Las Bambas. And that treaty was made so that later Las Bambas would be sold. Taxes paid in Switzerland and not in Peru, which are lower than in Peru. So Peru lost money. These kinds of things should also be taken on by the mining society, the industry society, CONFIP, and protest. The same happened with this company in Talara, Petrotech, I think it was. It also paid taxes there and not here. And Peru lost money. So I don't think we are acting well when we complain about small things that are important to eliminate, and don't also complain about the big things that we don't see. Because it is only through documents and nothing else, and also through transfers. That's what I mean.
Victor Andres, our time is up. Thank you very much for being with us on Rumbo Minero. And we hope, of course, that you can visit us at Expo Mina from the 11th to the 13th of September.
Invite me with pleasure, but we invite you and you never have time. Yes, no. Well, from now on, I will have time, believe me. The topic interests me a lot, although I know it from the outside.
Thank you for being on Rumbo Minero. Well, next we now go with Gabriela Chicoma and the detailed information about Expo Mina. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Expo Mina, Peru, from the 11th to the 13th of September 2024, will be chaired by Luis Rivera, Executive Vice President of Golfis Las Americas. Highlight your brand through the various sponsorships we offer at Expo Mina, Peru. Networking opportunities, participation in exclusive activities, media promotion, among other important benefits. For more information, please visit our website at www.expominaperu.com.
Gabriela, well, we entered the America mining block, Rumbo Minero. Of course, we are already connected to Wall Street, New York, with José Gonzales, the editor of our magazine, International, from our magazine, Rumbo Minero. Welcoming José. How are you? How's it going?
Good, Jorge. Always delighted to see you all.
Welcoming you. One of the questions that, well, when you can watch CNN, you feel, especially CNN, not in Spanish, but in English, you feel overwhelmed by the election topic in the United States. But it's hard to gauge what would happen if Trump wins, what would happen if Kamala Harris wins, what would happen to South America, what would happen to Peru if each of them wins, and of course, to Peru being a mining country, right? Can you explain a bit what the implications would be if each of these sides wins?
weeks. The center for the answer to your question, Jorge, particularly in the case of Peru, the mining issue and the economic issue in general, let's remember that Latin America is a source of raw materials, metals and minerals, oil, gas, and important agro-industrial food products for the planet. How will the policies of the United States have an influence or not on these sectors? Moreover, the American economy remains the largest in the world, twice the size of Europe. And China, which was 74% of the US GDP, is now 64%. And it has already been ruled out that China will become larger than the United States. In that regard, with respect to Peru and mining, the issue of the environment is fundamental. Blackstone, which is one of the largest private investment funds in the United States and the world, and the most significant in the US, stated this week that, generally speaking, the Republican Party aligns with the interests of the oil and gas industry, while the Democratic Party aligns with the development of renewable energy, and therefore the development of critical minerals included in Biden administration's legislative initiatives. In this historical cycle, curious things are happening, such as in the era of decarbonization. Unlike recent past dynamics, environmental interests are in alignment with those of the critical minerals extraction industry, as it is absolutely essential for the development and advancement of energy, renewable. Therefore, we must consider the American election and the candidates' proposals from that particular perspective. Between the two candidates, Kamala Harris possesses the best credentials when it comes to environmental initiatives. As California's Attorney General, noted the New York Times, she initiated actions against environmental polluters. As a senator, she supported the Green New Deal, the most ambitious environmental legislative initiative in the United States. And as vice president, she cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate, which was 50-50. That is when the vice president, who presides over the Senate, votes in favor of one side or the other, as seen in the Inflation Reduction Act of the year 2022, which includes the largest environmental spending in the history of the United States. And she also represented the country at COP KSP8 in Dubai. Harris should continue with the Biden administration's initiatives, considering that 65% of Americans want the country to focus on increasing solar and wind energy, that the renewable energy agenda, which is very popular among young voters, is something that did not support Biden. Trump's platform, on the other hand, goes in the completely opposite direction. During his presidency, Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the Paris Agreements, the only country to do so. Biden returned the United States to the Paris Agreements and has maintained that he will stop American environmental efforts by repealing the Inflation Reduction Act and halting the transition away from oil, gas, and coal to renewable energies, developing and exploiting greater oil production. Having experienced the hottest summer in human history and in the country in particular, such proposals seem unreasonable for environmental development and are definitely contrary to the progress of mining.
Very interesting, Jose. Finally, I would like to ask you, with less than a month until the 9th version's inauguration of Expomina, the 6th of Confemin, the mining conference, which is part of development of the activity we will do at Expomina from the 11th to the 13th of September. We have practically covered, thanks to your comments, all the congresses. Only one remains, the Copper and Lithium Congress. What will be the dynamics of this Congress? What will be its nature? Who will lead it? And how will it develop?
As we have pointed out many times, Cesar, the ongoing urbanization of the planet and the economic progress that has expanded the middle classes globally, especially in emerging markets, have intensified energy use, increasing carbon emissions, and this will only worsen as global growth today depends on India and Southeast Asia. And in Africa, only in Africa, 600 million people will start using electricity. As the demands for energy have increased carbon emissions, which are now measured over time with new techniques and have been a connection to global warming that has already precisely exceeded the limits set by the Paris Agreements, and according to the resolutions in last year's COP meeting, the best way to maintain and reduce global temperatures, which, as we said, this summer has been extraordinarily hot, like the winter in Lima is colder than usual, is promoting decarbonization by reducing the use of fossil fuels, and for this purpose, electromobility and energy. Transition are essential, with lithium and copper being the flagship metals for each process. Considering these dynamics, the Copper and Lithium Congress aims to focus on challenges and opportunities, as well as the global context and Peru's projects in both metals. We are undoubtedly the country with the most significant copper mining capacity on the planet, the second largest reserve globally, and we have significant lithium potential that could place us 7th in the global ranking. The forum is chaired by Carlos Castro, who is the Corporate Affairs and Business Development Manager at MMG Las Bambas. The Congress features knowledgeable speakers in each of these areas, and as you mentioned, we will see each other in less than a month at Yolkit from September 11th to 13th.
Many thanks to José Gonzales for being with us. We will see each other soon. And well, next week we will discuss these and other topics more. I wanted to introduce the magazine, the latest edition of Rumbo Minero magazine, www.rumbominero.com. You can visit www.rumbominero.com and download the magazine completely free of charge. Every 45 days. Obviously, we are talking about copper and all its implications. Cesar.
Well, Jorge, it is time to move on to the mining assets block SAMSAC.
The environmental situation in La Roya was very complex. Peru had to take on its guardian responsibility to ensure the health of the population and the ecosystem.
In the past, the streets and roads were just mud and dirt. So there was a lot of pollution, and that has changed because mining assets have been covered and remedied. Everything that was poisoned, let's say the environment, has now been covered.
Nowadays, Alto Marcaval has developed significantly, connecting commerce and transport. Job sources have been created. Now it's a better quality of life. This place, as mentioned, has developed a lot, right? Thanks to this, we have more development in our association here in Alto Marcaval, right?
Even the animals used to suffer from lameness, as it was called. Lameness, or the little animals that couldn't walk on the grass due to pollution. Today, that disease has disappeared.
In these areas, with exposed and contaminated soils, I played with my brother, friends, and family. I am filled with joy to work in a company that made the change in La Roya. Today's kids have a completely different reality.
Bravo! Well done!
As we announced, we are now with Carlos Gálvez, former president and director of the National Society of Mining, Petroleum and Energy, and well, a key voice, most authorized and interesting on the mining issues in Peru. We will discuss the knowledge under the shadow of illegal mining, among other topics. Carlos, how are you? Welcome back to Rumbo Minero.
Jorge Cesar, it is always a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks to you. The implementation of the feasibility of various mining projects and expansions, the simplification of procedures, the excellent work so far by engineer Romulo Mucho, among other things, let's say, actions that the government is taking. What do you think is missing? Because I believe progress has been made, obviously, if we compare. Now with the time of Castillo, clearly, it is much better, but of course we need to keep moving forward because we must take advantage of copper prices, right? Especially now. Progress has been made in some areas. What do you think that the government should advance? We already have projects that were not discussed before, like T. Maria, which is already there, but we need to reformulate the project portfolio. So what are your top priorities, the first, second, and third in the field of Peruvian mining at this moment for you?
Up to now, what we have managed to achieve is having a single electronic window system, which allows you to follow up and know where your process is. But to see any acceleration in the process, absolutely nothing. What we need to do is exactly what: speed up processes, eliminate processes because there are redundant processes. I am not talking about lowering standards. I am talking about removing redundant processes and opinions that are redundant.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's a very important point, right? People who attack the desire to streamline all of this, I've heard them say, sure, they want to relax environmental issues, and that's not true. It repeats, as you say, it repeats so many times, right?
Moreover, they play ping pong between different entities. It goes, comes back, they give it again, comes back. And there are organizations that don't even allow you to respond after observations. That is, it's a problem. You go to the ministries, you know, and truly, they avoid signing. And if you don't sign, nothing moves. This way, nothing will progress our portfolio of projects. We talk about Tia Maria, and honestly, I am very pleased that Sador had enough resilience to endure all of this. All this time, including the nonsense Vizcarra did in the year 2019.
I would say, let's say about Vizcarra, about negotiating with the regional president and others, give me reasons to oppose Tia Maria. It's a mess of people,
it's
honestly.
Disgusting.
Sorry, I wanted to say.
On one hand, you give the permit, and on the other, you negotiate with criminals. Who are you negotiating with?
IK, also the disrespect of giving you a one-day permit, right?
It is. No. An unacceptable person. That Vizcarra is unacceptable. But anyway.
Move to the next topic that Jorge had announced, because obviously the fight against illegal mining remains a central issue, now not only for the mining sector, but for the country, since it has even transcended beyond the operations of drug trafficking, which was the main source of illegal activity in our nation. Rodolfo Garcia, the High Commissioner against illegal mining, has noted that the executive power, Carlos, is studying economic alternatives for those who engage in illegal mining, precisely replicating the due process that offers an alternative economy, product development, so they can move away from coca leaf farming. Do you think that is feasible? Proposal? Is it conducive? How could it be applied? What is your point of view?
Look, I'm going to tell you something that might sound like nonsense. I am convinced, because my background was in the mining bank, I am convinced that the state should promote small-scale mining and artisanal mining. I am convinced that the state should promote and encourage prospecting and exploration. Look, we have as an example what happens in Canada. In Canada, many people with geological and mining knowledge and experience do prospecting around the world, not just in Canada, and they sell the discoveries to be developed by companies that have the technical capacity, the social management skills, and then proper governance so that the projects can be carried forward. What cannot be allowed is that is permitted or given authorization to enter another's property, to exploit inappropriately. What concerns us is they lack proper human resources management. They lack security management. They lack respect for the environment and do not protect it. And in the final instance, they do not have the commercial management and tax payments, but
that's where it comes from.
No.
So you can complement that, which is related to the topic, the MAPE law and reinfo. Reinfo, We know it's just a salute to the flag.
It's just lip service. It's an insult to Peru.
Not an insult to Peru. And what do you think of the MAPE law? It's a proposal, right?
It's a proposal like all. We need to find ways to improve it. I think that the dimensions and sizes are excessive that are being considered. I believe that their key should be given more options to support them from a legal standpoint so they can have their concessions in order, so they can formalize lease agreements with those who wish to authorize them, permits, and they should be more guided to prospecting and exploration for discoveries. Certainly with respect to all protected areas, natural zones can't be touched and are affected. There is something I'd like to differentiate. We must treat differently vein mining like betas angostas from alluvial mining, which destroys the jungle. And we must have careful management, policing the crime that is behind all the illegal activity that involves entering mines, stealing ore, what's happening in Patas. We must be very careful with the environment. Just look at what happened in Quirubilca, in La Libertad. All that must be protected.
To finally address, Carlos, a positive topic, Beard Creek Mining is announcing the start of operations at Coran and this project of silver for the Puno region. How do you see it? Actually, as we have always discussed with Jorge here on the show, we always need engines like Tia Maria, for example, flagships that keep us motivated, so this can continue. How do you see the development of the Coran project?
Well, finally, the Coran project would be moving forward, and I think they still have an expectation to start building within a couple of years or maybe a bit more. The best of success, because it has been marking the time for quite some time now. Exploration, development, engineering. What is the natural process we undergo in mining? Thank you.
Because remember that at Perumin last year, they were talking about with a presentation from a person from Canada, that the timelines are no more than 5 years, 4 years, and look at the delay in Peru. That can't be. That's what we need to correct.
Agreed. Carlos, thank you very much for being with us on Rumbo Minero, and soon it will be Expomina. We await you. Cordially invited to attend the more than 80 talks and international presence we will have.
Delighted. Thank you very much.
Well, next we are going to a promotion with Gabriela Chicoma about Expomina. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining event in Peru with 16 years of history. Do business with the mining sector of Peru and America. Expomina Peru from September 11th to 13th, 2024 at the Yoke Exhibition Center in Lima. Portfolio of mining projects in Peru worth over $53 million and portfolio of mining projects in America worth $450 million. Invest now with the leaders. Participate in Expomina Peru 2024. For more information, visit our website www.expominaperu.com.
Jorge, that's right. I believe what Victor Andrés says is important. Always opening the national debate, right? The national debate in every aspect. But we should also tell those you mentioned, these anti-mining congressmen, right? They don't debate, they just oppose mining, right? And that has no deeper meaning. Anti-mining congressmen, right? They don't debate, they just oppose mining, right? And that has no deeper meaning.
What Carlos Gálvez also mentioned, our second interviewee, we must have conviction. Here, when we commit, for example, to the mining objective, it's not about defending this or that company, it's about defending a concept. Peru is a mining country, so we must seek all formulas, especially modern ones, for the development of sustainable and socially committed mining. And
There
there
are
are
always
always
things
things to improve, but
improve,
not to
but not
deny
deny.
on principle. I am anti-mining, like every fool who has sat in Congress in an ideological and absurd manner.
That's right. Thank you, Cesar, for being with us on behalf of Grupo de Gama. In a few minutes, Peru Construye is coming up. Don't forget to register for Expomina, expominaperu.com. From the 11th to the 13th, you will have access to over 80 free talks, limited spots available. So register now, www.expominaperu.com. Up next, we have Peru Construye in a few minutes.